Have you ever planted a beautiful, hopeful little vegetable garden in the spring, only to watch it wither away because your yard just does not get enough sunlight? What if I told you that having a shady garden is not a curse, but actually a hidden superpower for growing an endless supply of food? Today we are unlocking the ultimate May gardening secret. We are talking about the legendary half-shade trio. These are specific plants that not only survive in low light, but actually prefer it. And the best part is, no matter how much you harvest them, they just keep growing back. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to transform that dark, forgotten corner of your patio into a relentless green machine. Have you ever accidentally killed a sun-loving tomato plant because your yard was too dark? Let me know your biggest gardening failure in the comments below, and let us see who has had the toughest luck. Before we get our hands dirty, let us quickly define what we mean by partial shade. In the gardening world, partial shade simply means an area that receives about 3 to 4 hours of direct sunlight a day, usually in the cool morning, and is protected from the harsh, scorching afternoon rays. Historically, farmers knew that while fruiting plants like peppers and tomatoes need intense, all-day baking in the sun, leafy greens evolved in the dappled understory of forests. May is the absolute perfect month for this adventure. The soil has finally warmed up, the danger of deep frost has passed, but the brutal heat of midsummer has not yet arrived. This creates the ultimate Goldilocks zone for our specific trio of plants. They get just enough warmth to grow quickly, but enough cool shade to keep their leaves sweet and tender. Now, let us break down exactly how to master this continuous harvest system, step by step. Let us start by unraveling the sheer brilliance of the cut and come-again harvesting method, which is the absolute foundation of our half-shade trio. Imagine having a magical salad bowl in your backyard that magically refills itself just days after you empty it. That is exactly what this technique offers. Instead of pulling the entire plant out by its roots, which is a one-time deal, you only harvest the oldest outer leaves. The central growing point of the plant remains completely undisturbed in the soil. Think of it like giving your plants a gentle haircut, rather than chopping down the whole tree. Many new gardeners fall for the myth that you have to wait 2 long months to harvest a single, massive head of greens, only to be left with an empty patch of dirt. But by using this specific snipping technique, you force the plant into a continuous cycle of fresh growth. The plant registers that it has lost its leaves and immediately directs all its energy into pushing out new, tender foliage. When you do this in partial shade, the magic multiplies. The cooler soil and lower light levels prevent the plant from panicking and going to seed, which is what usually stops the harvest. So, with just a simple pair of scissors and a little patience, you can easily get 4 or 5 continuous harvests from a single seed, transforming a tiny, dim corner of your yard into a high-yielding food factory that keeps giving all season long. Now let us meet the very first superstar of our shade-loving trio, which is loose-leaf lettuce. I am not talking about the tight, pale iceberg lettuce you find wrapped in plastic at the grocery store. I am talking about vibrant, frilly, open-leaf varieties like oak leaf or buttercrunch. These specific types of lettuce are practically designed by nature to thrive in the shadows. There is a very stubborn myth out there that all vegetables need 8 solid hours of blinding sunlight to survive. But if you put loose-leaf lettuce in blazing sun, it will actually panic, turn incredibly bitter, and shoot up a tall flower stalk in a process called bolting. By planting your lettuce in a spot that only gets a few hours of morning sun, you are acting as a protective shield. The shade keeps the soil temperature cool and the moisture levels consistent, which is exactly what lettuce needs to produce those sweet, tender leaves that melt in your mouth. For a perfect illustration, imagine sitting under a nice beach umbrella on a hot day, instead of baking on the sand. Your lettuce feels exactly the same way. In the gentle climate of May, a shaded lettuce patch will grow vigorously, without the stress of the midday heat, giving you the perfect base for your daily spring salads, without any of the bitter aftertaste. So, how exactly do you harvest this shade-loving lettuce so it keeps coming back? The technique is incredibly simple, but getting it wrong is the #1 reason people fail. You never want to pinch or tear the leaves with your bare hands, as this can severely damage the delicate root system of the plant. Instead, take a clean, sharp pair of scissors and carefully snip the outer, largest leaves about 1 inch above the soil line. You must always leave the tiny, tightly curled baby leaves in the very center of the rosette, untouched. This center point is the heart of the plant, the biological engine that will generate your next harvest. If you accidentally snip that central growing point, the plant will simply give up and die. A great visual is to think of peeling the layers of an onion, but you stop before you reach the core. By moving down your row of lettuce and taking just 3 or 4 outer leaves from each plant, you can easily gather enough for a massive family salad. Meanwhile, the plants are barely stressed. Within just 4 to 7 days, those tiny inner leaves will have expanded outward, ready to be snipped again. It is a wonderfully satisfying, almost meditative process that turns a daily chore into a rewarding interaction with nature right in your own backyard. To support this aggressive, continuous growth in the shade, your soil preparation in early May is absolutely critical. You cannot just drop seeds into hard, compacted dirt and expect a miracle. Because these plants are constantly regenerating their leafy tops, they are incredibly hungry for nutrients, specifically nitrogen. The best way to provide this is by mixing a generous amount of rich, dark compost right into the top few inches of your garden bed or container. Shade gardens have a unique characteristic. They do not dry out nearly as fast as sunny patches. While this is great for saving water, it means your soil must have excellent drainage. If the soil is too heavy and clay-like, the roots will sit in stagnant water and rot before they can push out new leaves. Think of your ideal soil texture like a damp sponge that has been wrung out. It holds onto moisture, but there is still plenty of air pockets for the roots to breathe. I always recommend adding a little bit of perlite or coarse sand to your compost mix if you are growing in containers in a shady corner. This creates the perfect fluffy environment. When your soil is loose, rich, and well-draining, your lettuce roots can easily stretch out and absorb the massive amounts of water and food they need to recover from their weekly haircuts. Moving on to the second powerhouse of our half-shade trio, we have the mighty spinach. Spinach is an absolute nutritional juggernaut, packed with iron and vitamins, and it happens to absolutely love the cool embrace of a shady garden. May is arguably the most critical month for spinach. If you try to grow it in the peak of summer sun, it will instantly bolt, turning into a tough, inedible tower of seeds. But when tucked away under the shadow of a taller plant or beside a garden fence, spinach remains docile and highly productive. There is a common misconception that spinach leaves need direct sun to develop deep green color and nutrients. The truth is quite the opposite. In partial shade, spinach actually broadens its leaves, making them wider and thinner to catch whatever ambient light is available. This biological adaptation results in leaves that are significantly more tender and much more pleasant to eat raw in salads. Imagine a solar panel that expands to catch more light on a cloudy day. That is exactly what your spinach is doing. By exploiting this natural tendency, your May shade garden becomes the ultimate environment for growing premium, gourmet-quality spinach that you simply cannot buy in a standard supermarket. Harvesting your shade-grown spinach requires a slightly different touch compared to lettuce. While lettuce grows in a somewhat elevated rosette, spinach tends to hug the ground much more closely. You still want to utilize the cut-and-come-again method, but you have to be very mindful of the dirt. When you snip the outermost spinach leaves, make sure your scissors are clean and angle your cuts carefully so you do not drag the stems through the wet soil. Because shade gardens stay damp, any damaged plant tissue lying on the wet earth can quickly invite fungal diseases. A great trick is to harvest your spinach in the late morning, right after the overnight dew has dried from the leaves, but before the afternoon air gets too warm. By doing this, the cut stems heal over rapidly, sealing the plant against any potential rot. Always harvest from the outside in, and never take more than 1/3 of the total leaves from a single spinach plant at any one time. If you strip the plant completely bare, it will not have enough solar energy left to fuel its regrowth. Treat your spinach like a long-term investment. You only want to skim the profits off the top while leaving the principal amount safely in the bank to generate more interest for next week. Let us introduce the third and final member of our endless May trio, the incredibly resilient chives. While lettuce and spinach provide the bulk of your salads, chives bring the explosive flavour. Chives are part of the onion family, and they are one of the very few perennial herbs that perform exceptionally well in partial shade. Most people think all herbs need the scorching heat of a Mediterranean sun, like rosemary or thyme. But chives are different. They naturally grow in grassy meadows that are often shaded by taller brush. In the gentle shade of your May garden, chive leaves grow taller, softer, and possess a much sweeter, milder onion flavour compared to the harsh, spicy bite they develop when baked in full sun. They are incredibly tough plants. You can almost neglect them completely, and they will still faithfully push up those hollow, grassy green tubes. If you are a beginner looking for a confidence boost, chives are your best friend. They act as the perfect flavour enhancer to the greens you are already growing. Plus, in late May, they produce absolutely stunning edible purple flowers that not only look gorgeous in a shady spot, but also attract beneficial insects that will help protect the rest of your garden from pests. When it comes to harvesting chives to ensure they never stop growing, there is a very specific rule you must follow. Do not just pull individual tubes out of the ground, and do not snip just the very tips off the top. If you only cut the top half of a chive leaf, the remaining bottom half will simply turn brown, hard, and die back, leaving your plant looking messy and inhibiting fresh growth. The correct method is to grab a small handful of the leaves, like you are holding a tiny ponytail, and use sharp scissors to cut the whole bunch straight across, leaving only about 1 to 2 inches of green stubble above the soil. This might look drastic, almost like you have ruined the plant, but this deep cut is exactly what stimulates the roots. It sends a shockwave to the root bulb, triggering it to push up completely fresh, new spears from the base. Within a matter of days, you will see bright green tips emerging from those blunt cuts. It is truly one of the fastest recovering plants in the garden. By rotating which section of your chive clump you give a buzz cut to, you ensure that you will have a constant, rolling supply of fresh onion flavour to chop over your baked potatoes and salads for the entire season. One of the most powerful strategies you can employ in May is planting this specific trio together in the same shaded container or garden bed. This is called companion planting, and it works beautifully because these three plants do not compete with each other. They actually act as a cooperative team. The lettuce spreads out wide, creating a living mulch over the soil that keeps the roots of the spinach cool and moist. The chives grow straight up, taking up very little horizontal space, and their strong, pungent onion scent acts as a natural force field. Many pests that love to chew on soft lettuce and spinach leaves, like aphids and certain beetles, are completely repulsed by the smell of chives. It is like planting a fragrant security guard right in the middle of your salad bar. Furthermore, because they all share the exact same requirements for water, light, and soil type, managing them becomes incredibly efficient. You do not have to worry about overwatering one while underwatering another. You can simply tend to the entire container as one single, harmonious ecosystem. This synergy maximizes every square inch of your shady space, turning what used to be a dead zone into a highly efficient, multi-layered food-producing machine. Watering your cut and come-again shade garden requires a major shift in mindset compared to watering a traditional, sunny vegetable patch. In full sun, water evaporates quickly, and plants guzzle it down to keep cool. But in the cool, sheltered environment of partial shade, water hangs around much longer. The biggest mistake you can make with our shade trio in May is loving them to death with the watering can. Overwatering in the shade quickly leads to soggy soil, suffocated roots, and the dreaded root rot, which will end your endless harvest immediately. You must learn to check the soil before you water. Do not just look at the surface. Stick your finger about 2 inches down into the dirt. If it feels dry at your fingertip, it is time to give them a deep, thorough drink. If it feels even slightly damp, walk away. When you do water, focus the stream directly at the base of the plants, right onto the soil. Try to avoid getting the leaves soaking wet, especially late in the day. Wet leaves sitting in the cool shade overnight are an open invitation for powdery mildew and other fungal issues. Think of it like a sponge. You want the soil to be moist, but never dripping wet. Because you are asking these plants to perform the incredible feat of regrowing their bodies over and over again. They are going to need a lot of energy. This brings us to the crucial topic of fertilizing your endless harvest garden. A slow-release compost, mixed into the soil at planting time, is a great start. But by late May, after you have taken 2 or 3 harvests, the soil bank is going to start running low on funds. To keep the engine running, you need to apply a liquid fertilizer. Liquid fertilizers are amazing because they are absorbed almost instantly by the roots, providing a quick shot of energy exactly when the plant is desperately trying to push out new leaves. For our leafy trio, you want a fertilizer that is relatively high in nitrogen, which is the nutrient responsible for green, leafy growth. A liquid kelp extract, or a very diluted fish emulsion, works absolute wonders. Every 2 weeks, right after you do a major harvest, mix a weak batch of this liquid gold into your watering can and douse the soil. This immediate resupply of nutrients ensures that your next batch of leaves comes back just as large, vibrant, and delicious as the very first harvest. Now we have to talk about the dark side of shade gardening. While the cool, damp environment is perfect for our trio, it is also a 5-star luxury resort for the arch enemies of leafy greens. I am talking about slugs and snails. These slimy little creatures despise the hot sun, but they will throw a massive party in your shady lettuce patch overnight. You might wake up in May to find your beautiful spinach leaves riddled with massive, ragged holes. But do not panic, and please do not reach for harsh chemical pesticides that could ruin your organic harvest. There is a classic, highly effective trick to protect your crops. It is the infamous beer trap. Slugs are incredibly attracted to the yeast and fermentation smells of beer. Simply take a shallow container like an empty tuna can, sink it into the soil so the rim is level with the ground, and fill it halfway with cheap beer. Oh, the slugs will be drawn away from your vegetables, crawl into the can, and unfortunately for them, never crawl out. By setting up a few of these simple traps around the perimeter of your shade garden, you can easily control the pest population without ever putting a single drop of poison near your precious, continuous harvest. One of the greatest advantages of this specific shade trio is how perfectly suited they are for container gardening. If your only outdoor space is a north-facing apartment balcony or a small patio blocked by a large tree, you can still achieve incredible results. In fact, growing these plants in pots offers a massive advantage in May. It gives you total control over their environment. You can use long rectangular window boxes or large round planters. Because lettuce, spinach and chives all have relatively shallow root systems, the pots do not even need to be incredibly deep. 8 to 10 inches of soil depth is more than enough for them to thrive. The beauty of container gardening is mobility. In early May, when the weather is still quite chilly, you can place the pots in a spot that gets a little more sun to warm them up. As the month progresses and the days get hotter, you can physically slide the entire garden back into the deeper shade to protect them from bolting. This ability to chase the perfect microclimate ensures that your plants remain in their absolute sweet spot, guaranteeing that the cut and come again cycle remains completely uninterrupted, regardless of the crazy spring weather swings. Let us dive a little deeper into how the temperature dynamics of May specifically impact our continuous harvest. May is a transitional month. The days are getting longer, and the ambient air temperature is steadily rising. Leafy greens are biologically programmed to reproduce, which means making flowers and seeds as soon as the soil hits a certain temperature threshold. This is their survival mechanism. But the partial shade acts like a natural air conditioning system for the soil. While the sunny parts of your yard are baking and telling all the other plants that summer has arrived, the shaded corners remain cool, tricking our trio into thinking it is still early spring. This temperature manipulation is the real secret behind extending your harvest. By keeping the roots cool, you suppress the hormonal signal that tells the lettuce and spinach to stop producing edible leaves and start making bitter seeds. It is a brilliant hack against nature. You are essentially freezing time in the garden. While other gardeners are ripping out their bolted, bitter lettuce in frustration by late May, you will still be calmly snipping fresh, sweet greens for your dinner table, all thanks to the cooling power of the shadows. To truly master the art of the endless harvest, you should employ a technique known as succession planting. Even with the magic of cut and come again and the protective cooling of the shade, no plant lives forever. Eventually, after 4 or 5 heavy haircuts, the original lettuce and spinach plants will simply exhaust themselves. To ensure you do not experience a sudden gap in your food supply, you need to plan ahead. Around the middle of May, when your first batch of plants is hitting its peak production, take a few moments to sow a fresh pinch of seeds in any empty gaps in your containers or garden beds. You do not need a whole new space, just scratch the soil between the existing plants and drop in a few seeds. By the time your older plants finally give up the ghost in June, these new seedlings will have already sprouted and established themselves, ready to take over the heavy lifting. This creates a seamless, overlapping relay race of vegetable production. You are constantly rotating new life into the system. This simple habit of dropping a few seeds every 2 weeks transforms your shade garden from a temporary spring project into a highly reliable, long-term source of fresh produce. While we have praised the benefits of shade, it is entirely possible to have too much of a good thing. How do you know if your garden is actually too dark, even for our shade-loving trio? The plants will communicate with you very clearly through a symptom called legginess. If your lettuce or spinach seeds sprout, but immediately grow into tall, weak, pale stems that flop over before producing proper leaves, they are desperately stretching out to find light. This means the area is simply too dark. True partial shade still offers bright, indirect ambient light, even if the sun is not hitting the plants directly. Think of the bright light under a leafy oak tree versus the pitch-black shadow behind a solid brick wall. If your plants look like pale, skinny threads, you need to make an adjustment. You might need to prune back some overhanging branches to let more dappled light through. Or, if they are in containers, edge them just a foot or two closer to the sunlight. Gardening is all about observation and tiny adjustments. Once you find that perfect balance where the leaves grow wide and flat rather than tall and stretched, you have unlocked the exact light level needed for endless production. There is an often overlooked but incredibly important benefit to this style of gardening: the mental health aspect. Traditional gardening can sometimes be stressful. You plant a cabbage, wait 3 months hoping bugs do not eat it, and then harvest it once. It is a high-stakes game of patience, but the cut-and-come-again shade garden provides instant, recurring gratification. Every few days you get to walk outside with your scissors and interact directly with your plants. The simple, quiet act of snipping fresh greens, smelling the sharp tang of the cut chives, and watching the basket fill up is incredibly therapeutic. It forces you to slow down, breathe the fresh May air, and engage in a small, repetitive task that yields immediate positive results. Seeing the plants visually bounce back and produce new leaves week after week builds immense confidence, especially for beginners who may have felt they lacked a green thumb. It transforms the garden from a chore that requires hard labor into a gentle, daily ritual of harvesting and observation. It proves that you do not need a massive, sun-drenched farm to experience the deep joy and connection of growing your own food. Let us talk about what to actually do with this mountain of produce you will be harvesting throughout May. When you get this system dialed in, you will be shocked at the sheer volume of leaves you bring inside. The lettuce provides a soft, buttery base for everyday salads. Because you are harvesting baby or medium-sized leaves, they are incredibly tender and do not require heavy, overpowering dressings. A simple vinaigrette is perfect. The shade-grown spinach is a revelation. Unlike the thick, sometimes squeaky spinach from the store, these leaves are delicate enough to be eaten raw, folded into warm omelettes, or blended into morning smoothies without adding any bitter taste. And the chives are your secret weapon for garnishing. Chopped fine, they instantly elevate scrambled eggs, baked potatoes, or a simple bowl of soup. Because the harvest is continuous, you no longer have to hoard your vegetables or worry about them rotting in the refrigerator crisper drawer. Your garden becomes a living, breathing refrigerator. You only cut exactly what you need for dinner that specific night, ensuring that every single meal is prepared with ingredients that were alive and growing just 10 minutes before you ate them. As we reach the end of May, the weather will inevitably start to turn hotter, signaling the approach of true summer. This is when your shade garden really proves its ultimate worth. While your gardening neighbours with full sun plots are watching their delicate spring greens wither and die in the early June heatwaves, your half-shade trio will still be happily chugging along in their protected, cool microclimate. The shade that seemed like a limitation back in April has now become a life-saving sanctuary. It is important to continue your rigorous harvesting schedule even as the weather warms. By constantly removing the older foliage, you prevent the plant from accumulating too much bulk, which helps improve air circulation around the base and prevents heat-related rot. Keep a close eye on soil moisture, as the ambient heat will dry things out faster, even in the shade. If you have kept up with your liquid fertilizing and careful snipping, you can easily push this May garden straight through June and sometimes even into July, completely defying the normal growing seasons and maximizing every ounce of effort you put in. To sum up the magic of this system, success comes down to changing your perspective. Do not look at a shady spot as dead space. Look at it as a specialized growing zone. By choosing the right team, our incredible trio of loose-leaf lettuce, tender spinach, and resilient chives, you are working with nature instead of fighting it. You are utilizing the cut and come again method to trick these plants into endless production. You are managing the damp shade soil properly, providing quick bursts of liquid nutrition and protecting them from the slugs that want to steal your hard work. This entire process turns gardening into a dynamic, interactive experience rather than a waiting game. It is a low-stress, high-reward strategy that perfectly matches the mild transitional weather of May. Whether you have a tiny balcony or a huge yard dominated by massive trees, this complete guide gives you the exact blueprint to stop buying sad, plastic-wrapped greens from the store and start harvesting your own vibrant, living superfoods right outside your door, week after week, all season long. And there you have it, the ultimate plot twist in the gardening world. That dark, shady corner you thought was completely useless is actually the secret weapon for growing an endless supply of crisp, sweet vegetables. By harnessing the power of the half-shade trio, lettuce, spinach, and chives, and mastering the simple cut and come-again technique, you have unlocked a continuous food factory that defies the rules of traditional gardening. The shade is not your enemy, it is the ultimate protective shield that keeps your greens producing long after the sunny gardens have bolted and burned. Thank you so much for watching and learning with us today. If this video changed the way you look at your shady yard, please hit that subscribe button, give us a big like, and share it with a friend who thinks they cannot grow a garden. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of the half-shade trio are you going to plant first this May? Drop your answers in the comments below and let us get a great discussion going. Until next time, happy harvesting.